All right, let me find an old pair of glasses here that'll help me read. We are going through The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis, and we are in chapter 34 on page 169, called The Person Who Loves God Delights in Him Above All Things. And this is book 3, The Interior Conversation. So we start off this time with the disciples speaking and praying. My God and my all, what more can I have, and what more can I desire than you? O sweet and delightful word, sweet to him who loves the word and not the world, nor those things that are in the world. And so this he's just drawing off right away that the divine, and this divine, when we're looking here, what more can I have and what more can I desire than you? And who is this you that we're talking about? This you is the very noun of pure love. Hello, Patricia Bennett. Good to see you. Sorry, I read your name and your monastic name wouldn't come to me. Your Sanskrit name wouldn't come to me, Pavitra. So, all right. So we're in chapter 34. So this notion that what more can I have and what more can I desire than you? This you that he speaks of here is the divine love. That God is love. He's not loving. He doesn't have the qualities of love. It's not an attribute of hers. It's not a quality of being. It's isness. She is love itself. God the Father is divine love itself. And to have that pure manifestation in ourselves, the writer is saying, what else could I possibly want? It is love that gives meaning to everything. And he says, how sweet to him who loves the word. Now, what is word? Word is love, the verb. Love is, word is one of the founding principles. In Vedanta, we call word Om. We actually give the word, but in Christianity, they just put a pointer, word. And in the beginning was word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. So we've got that same dichotomy, that Advaita reality where there's one without a second. The word is God, and then the word was with God. We have the duality. We have Shakti and Shiva. We have God vibrating, God expressing, God manifest, and God the unmanifest, God the unchanging. And so we see this consistent idea of the divine having two aspects, but really one, both moving and unmoving, both changing and unchanging, both manifested and unmanifested. He goes on to say, my God and my all, to the one who understands, enough is said, and yet it is pleasing to the one who loves to say it over and over again. When you are present, Lord, all things bring delight, but when you are absent, all things are dreary. When you come, you bring peace, joy, and gladness, and the heart is at rest. Right? And again, we keep this in perspective. It's like, what is it about this divinity or this spirit or this reality that when our minds are on that truth, when we're in the conscious awareness of that presence, that it is in fact love that comes into us and colors the world that we are, and the world no longer is material and separate and dead and dry and without purpose, without anything fulfilling. When you understand that love is the nature of all things created, and that all things created are created to express that divine love, then we get this kind of feeling, when you are present, Lord, all things bring delight. Right? If you spend your life looking for ways to love, looking for ways to give, looking for ways to serve, the world is going to do the same back to you. And you're just going to wonder, what happened to my life? How did it become so colorful, so rich, so satisfying? And really, it's only bringing in that awareness of divine love, that awareness of the presence into everything that we do, so that we understand we're not accountants, we're not computer scientists, we're not doctors or nurses or teachers. We're lovers. That we go to work. Incidentally, you're an accountant, but really, while you're there, You are there to love. Your higher purpose, the purpose that supersedes everything else in your life, is that you are here first and foremost, not to be a mom, not to be a dad, not to be any of these other attributes, but to be love itself, to be the expression of love itself in this world. And when we learn that, when we finally stumble upon that ideal, that because we are love itself, because we are wisdom itself, because we are existence itself, that a fulfilling life comes as a byproduct simply through our manifesting that nature, being true to ourselves, being true to our nature, making sure that what we do is based on a love that's unconditioned, making sure that what we think and what we do is based on a deep wisdom, a contemplative wisdom, and that it's done through being. Being means we're present here and now, not caught up in the stories that have taken us off into a fancy of thought, but present and hearing and listening, with the people, with whatever is in the room with us. We're in full concert with them. Right? We're not distracted or detracted. When you come, you bring peace, you bring joy and gladness, and the heart is at rest. You give us true judgment in all things and lead us to praise and glorify you in all things. This true judgment, what is that? That's when egoism's out of the way. When you're not any longer letting the body define your life, letting your mind define your life. When you've pulled yourself out and you're letting love and wisdom define your life in the silence of being, that gives you a perspective that's not locked into a selfish need or a selfish hunger or desire, right? That diminishing of egoism removes you from the picture so that you can see with a very clear objectivity the way things are, and you can love with an evenness, from that knowledge that you have that infinite well within. So when he says here, that you give us true judgment, that's what he's saying. He's the remover of egoism, the blindness of Maya, which is that idea that I am this body, I am this mind. The more that we believe that, the less we're able to see, the less wise we are. We make decisions that are temporal and decisions based on desires, decisions based on longings and hungers, rather than on seeing, on presence, on being. You give us true judgment in all things and lead us to praise and glorify you in all things. That praise and that glorify you, that's not an effort on our part in that. It's the natural response on our part. When we are in the presence of a divine love, when we're in the presence of that sweetness of God, the natural soul, the soul within, comes rising up, feels that presence, responds with a resounding vibration, a harmony, like, yes, I hear my name, right? So let us praise and glorify you in all things. There is no lasting pleasure without you, Lord, right? God is the one unchanging absolute. And that's what we are seeking in ourselves. When we go in to meditate, we're looking for that point within that is unchanging. And from that point, we arrive there by following Om, by following love, by following the mantra to the shrine of the heart. And when we sit there in the presence of the beloved, it says, there is no lasting pleasure without you, Lord, but if anything is to be agreeable or pleasant, it can only be with the help of your grace, and it must be seasoned with your wisdom, right? So that's what we talk about with Brother Lawrence, sitting in the presence, the awareness of this presence, of this divine beloved, and letting that affect us, letting that get into the root system of ourself. And through that, once it gets into our root, life becomes beautiful. The depressions, the sadnesses, the meaninglessness, the roteness of life as a body-mind is cured when we return to the knowledge that we're spirit, that we're not material, and that we're built on the divine principle, on the presence of God within us. Then we find that the world becomes agreeable, becomes pleasant, becomes meaningful. Will not all be a delight to those to whom you give a gift? But to those who take no delight in you, what else can be agreeable to them? The worldly wise and the sensuous are devoid of your wisdom, for in worldly wisdom is emptiness, and in sensuality is death. Why would you say in sensuality is death? I mean, oh, if you're sensual, you're going to die. Well, everybody's going to die. So what's he talking about here? This sensuality is what ties us to the body, right? It's what identifies us with the body. And so if we're body identified like that, if we think so deeply that we are the body, then as the body begins to melt in our old age, as it begins to fail, we see it as the end of ourself. We see it as the failing of ourself. You know, we feel that death coming. And when we lay in that hospital bed on our last day, we firmly believe that I am dying, you know. And so in that is terror, and there's a great fear that comes over us as we watch that. But if you've done your practice, if you've gone and become accustomed with your inner world and you've done your discernment, you have a distinct understanding as you watch the body die from inside. You watch it die and you watch it fall away, and you know and are not surprised that when the body drops off, that your existence is more real than ever, that the presence of that which you've meditated on, which you have longed for, is imminent and surrounding you and all around you. You escape that death, right? That's why from another place in the Christian scripture it says, for the wages of sin is death, right? Because what is sin? Sin is selfishness. Sin is what is inspired by being body and mind identified, right? Those things that are unhelpful, those things that are small and pertain only to me and mine. So he says, your wisdom for the world, the sensuous are devoid of your wisdom, right? Because the sensuous are tied to a body. That means they're egotistically motivated and egotistically driven. And so all of their desires are for the self, for the lower S self, for the me and mine of body mind. For the worldly wisdom is emptiness and the sensuality is death, right? Because that one reality of worldly thinking, everything comes to an end. What can have meaning with them when everything expires, right? And so we create an ego that lies to us. You know, we lie in our marriage values, you know, that this love is forever. You know, we make our graffiti on the wall, you know, da 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 da, forever. Right? Nothing's forever. And when we start coming to an age where we start realizing that if we have nothing real, nothing lasting to stand on, then that's a very difficult time, very difficult place to be. And that's why he says that worldly wisdom is emptiness, and in sensuality is death. Those, therefore, who follow you, Lord, by despising the world and mortifying the flesh, are wise indeed, for they are led from folly to truth, and from the flesh to the spirit. Souls such as these truly love God and refer to him whatever good is found in creatures. Yeah, so there's this understanding that all the good that we see in each other is that divine image of God manifesting. That's why Mother says she is your real mother, because everything that you love in your earthly mother is a quality of the divine mother that your mother has managed to manifest or to allow to manifest. And the same thing in your best friend, and the same thing in your husband, your wife. You have the same thing in your children and your grandparents. Same thing in all of your friends. That which you love and which you enjoy in them is that sparkling of the divine image within them, reflecting back that divine image that you have within you. And so as we recognize it in ourselves, that becomes what we see in others. That becomes what sparkles back at us in others. And so knowing this, we then refer all the good in all things to the divine. And it becomes easier to look through things and to see God, because we're accustomed to looking for the good in each other. And the good in each other is the name of God within each one of us, right? So this practice of seeing God everywhere is what allows us to grow and see God in ourselves first, and then everywhere. And then being spiritual is just a matter of fact. Being pure, meaning being without the ideas of me and mine, becomes matter of fact, because we know that we are not small, that we are not the body, we are not the mind, that we're not conditioned, we're not limited, we're not restricted, we're ever free. And we can only see that through very careful discernment, right, of our inner world, to find out inside, who am I? What is my nature? And through that diligent practice inside, we come to know unflinchingly, without a doubt, that we are not material. We are not the body mind. We've sat and we've seen the difference. We've experienced the difference. We've learned to control and to subjugate the body mind simply through that knowledge that it is not us, that it requires our presence, but we do not require its presence. Right? Without our presence, the body and mind cease. They fall out of existence. But we are the existence. We are the love that motivates them and brings life to them. Right? So we are spirit. But what a vast difference between the love of the creator and that of the creature, between eternity and time, between the uncreated light and the reflected light of creation. Right? See, they're pointing at this Vedanta everywhere. I mean, this is just dripping with Vedanta, this, this one sentence here. Well, the vast difference between the love of the creator, between God, who is love itself, a love that is without a condition and does not have a cause, does not have an effect. It is the isness. It is just that, the I am, the existence. What a difference between the love of the creator and that of the creature. You know, us who are mere images of God, which means reflections of the divine. We are the moon to the sun. You know, that our love, as beautiful as it is, pales in comparison to that of the creator, to that of the divine itself. Between eternity and time, you know, between outside of time, ever free, you're not looped in to the fence of time, to the fence of decay and death. Between the uncreated light and the reflected light of creation, that uncreated light, right? What is that uncreated light? That's the light that lights your dreams. It's the light of consciousness, right? When you close your eyes right now and you picture a rose, what is it that allows you to see the rose within you? That's the uncreated light. That's the light of consciousness that creates and manifests the dream and manifests the thought and the rose to you in the mind. That's the uncreated light. And then the reflected light, that's light bulbs, that's stars, that's sunshine, right? But that light can get blocked so easily, that light. But the light of consciousness lights everything, regardless of condition and circumstance. Right? It's a constant awareness, and it's an infinite awareness, and it's one of the elements of your Satchit Ananda, your being. O everlasting light, surpassing all created light, send down your bright rays from above to penetrate and illuminate the dark recesses of my heart. Enliven my spirit and all its powers. Cleanse it, gladden it, and enlighten it, that it may cling to you in joyous rapture. Right? And we know from that this also is a prayer for love here. You know, oh, everlasting light. What is that everlasting light? Remember, Eckhart Tolle said, he saw in one of his realizations, light and love are the same thing, right? So we've got this reflected light in the world, right, which bounces off of things and shows them. But then we have this light of awareness that lights up everything, you know, brings everything into awareness, into a being. And when we come to know of that unchanging light within, when we come to know of that space within us that's not hungry, that's not needy, that's not in a state of desire or thirst, and we come to find a place that is by nature quiet and at peace, not in an absence, but in the understanding of the fullness of pure potential. We find that peace within. And that, finding that space, our spirit is enlivened with all of its powers, because it's hearing the music it was born to, right? It's hearing its name for the first time. It's seeing its nature for the first time, and it just wakes it up with such a zeal and such a zest. Enliven my spirit and all its powers, cleanse it, yes, as it washes through that name of God, that name of love, as it washes through the self. It reminds us that egoism, that self-centeredness is not the ideal, and we can let it go and just feel that rebirth as it washes away, to feel that cleanliness, to feel that expansiveness of not being under the weight of the story all the time. Gladden it, enlighten it, that it may cling to you in joyous rapture. Love is that cord that brings us back to that unity. It's the wedding band between you and the divine beloved. When will that blessed hour come, when you will visit me with the joy of your presence and be to me my all in all? My joy cannot be full until you grant me this. And so in Christianity, they have this wonderful ideal of the bridegroom, Jesus, coming to the bride, which is your soul, to marry you, to have that moment of union. And in Jesus' last prayer, he prays that the cord of love will tie the whole universe back into its unity, back into its oneness. That they may be one in me as I am in you, O Father, right? Bound by this cord of love. And so this is this beautiful vision that he's painting here for us, and just longing for, for like St. John of the Cross. He says, in the Christian representation, the Christian ideal, you basically come to the edge of the precipice, that part where you can't cross over because you are not the doer. Your egoism cannot cross over that chasm. So we thin our ego to the point where we can see the chasm, we can see the end of egoism, but we can't be the one that takes off the last straw, because the last straw is our very existence as an individual, as a separate individual, right? And so that last straw, that last weight, that last delusion can only be taken off by the beloved as an act of grace. Because as soon as it comes off, there is no separateness anymore. There's no division between me and my divine beloved. There is nothing but that unity. And so when will come this blessed hour, as he's singing, when is this going to come, O Lord? When will come this blessed hour when you will visit me with the joy of your presence and be to me my all in all? My joy cannot be full until you grant me this. But sorry to say, my old nature still lives within me, right? This trace of egoism. Ramakrishna says, cut it down like the Aswata tree, and the very next morning you'll find the sprigs have come right back again, right? And so Thakur says, don't stress. Don't stress about this bit of egoism that just won't go away. He says, give that little bit of egoism that's still left in you, give that a divine turn, use that egoism to be the lover of God, to be the boyfriend of God, to be the wife of God, to be the friend of God, the servant of God. So take that last little vestige of egoism and use it as a tool to give yourself to the divine beloved. Thy old nature still lives within me, for it is not wholly crucified, not perfectly dead. The flesh still lusts strongly against the spirit, and waging war within me does not permit the kingdom of my soul to be in peace, right? And this is only true as long as we're identifying with the mind. It's not true that it can't end. It's just very, very difficult. But it can end when you just cut the rope, when you just understand, I am not this mind. I do not have to partake in this war. I don't have to fight this battle. This battle doesn't exist if I pull out of it. So let me just pull out of it and put my attention not on the mind with all of its changing ideas and moods and states of being. Let me place it just in my heart, which sits there in just a silent hum of bliss. And let me sit there in that peace and observe and look for the love in this story that dances in front of my senses. But you, who are Lord over the might of the sea and still the mountain of its waves, arise and come to my aid. Scatter the warring nations and crush them by your power. Right. So these can be taken metaphorically for all of those parts within us that are at war with the spirit. All those thoughts in us that we've been attached to, that are the lies that the ego's told us, the lies that you're in charge, the lies that you're a good person, the lies that, oh, you've got this, you can make this happen, the lies that you are responsible for all of these things. To separate from that and just be free in the moment without a definition, without a limitation, without a restriction, not needing, wanting, planning, looking to grab, nothing. You sit there and you let the music play and you watch yourself dance. You watch your body move in tune to the spirit that drives it. You watch it to move in tune with Satchitananda, right? And you begin to think, oh, that looks an awful lot like the Christ, an awful lot like Buddha, like Rama. I beseech you, Lord, to show the strength of your wonderful works and let the power of your right hand be glorified. For I have no other hope or refuge but in you, my Lord and my God. Right? This notion, this not having any other refuge, what a beautiful state that is. That's a real state of friendship between you and the beloved. When that friendship, when that relationship has matured to the point where it actually changes your physical life, changes your physical being in this world, because you take refuge, you know what it is to turn into the heart and not to turn into all your distractions. We see during the day when we've got some time, this is one of the big wrestlings of mine. It's like when I've got free time, I'd rather just sit there and titillate the mind by watching a few YouTube videos or, going and staring out the window for a moment or whatever, play a video game to pass a few moments. Right? These are refuges that are not giving us what we need. And so they're basically tools that prop up our egoism by distracting us from the important things. And so this here, he says, I have no other hope or refuge but in you. And so it's not being willing to turn to mere forms of entertainment to pass our time or to dull us to the banality of life or whatever the thing is that we're still struggling with. But to know that if we go to the shrine and use the name, that solves the problem. It doesn't distract from it. The problem won't be waiting for us when we come out of it. It will be solved in itself, right? Because that is where that happens, in the chamber of the heart. Going on to chapter 35. On the lack of security from temptation in this life, Christ is speaking. My child, you are never secure in this life. As long as you live, you will always need spiritual weapons. You are in the midst of the enemies who may attack from the right hand or from the left. If you do not make use of the shield of patience on all occasions, it is certain you will be wounded before long. All right, so he's saying you're never secure in this life, right? He's talking about the ego self that drives the body mind, and he's saying, that's never secure because it is not real. It's always changing. And so you may be able to find a way to lay in your bed that's comfortable for a few moments, but time will pass and just suddenly for no reason, you're not comfortable anymore. And now you have to shift and move around and find another position. And the mind, you may get it to be happy for a few moments, and then somewhere some idea of boredom will enter in, or some idea of depression will enter in. And you're then having to look and coddle to find a new position to put the mind in, to find happiness. And it's the same, you have a relationship with your with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, and it's beautiful one moment, then the next moment something is said, something is done, and it blows through the roof, and there's no more comfort there. There's anger, there's, indignation and whatnot. So this world is like that. And as long as we remain identified with body mind, we're subject to that, because those two elements, the body and the mind, are always changing in and of themselves, and so are never in a state of stability. Right? Only God is in that state of unmoving absolute stability. That divine noun of love is the refuge, is the place that we can go and hold on. And this patience is just that willingness to sit there and not be caught up in all of it, but to stand back, with some forbearance, be like, okay, this is the nature of things right now. This too shall pass. I'm watching a beautiful, I subscribed to her 2 days ago. This Black woman, she goes by the handle Burned Beauty. And I'm watching her because I've never seen a more beautiful practice in a person than what I'm seeing in her. She had a very abusive husband. I don't know the whole story yet, but who burned her through a horrible fight. It just burned her so bad. Literally, her face got so burned. She had no eyelids. She had no nose. She had no chin. It just all completely burned away. All of her shoulders, all the way the top third of her body is just all grafted skin. And so you can imagine that she's not attractive. Terrible understatement. She's very hard to look at. Very, very hard to look at. And she's doing these videos on her practice, trying to come back to a point where she can find herself beautiful, or she can find herself worthwhile. And she is doing God's work in her moving. She's wonderful. She's sharing all the surgeries that she's going through right now, and each one that's going along. And she has this whole thing. She talks about all the makeups and the skin salves, and she talks about which ones work and which ones don't work. And she shows you each time she has a surgery what's improved. And her whole thing, is just love. Just, I am beautiful because God made me beautiful. And that's her whole attitude. And she in all of her videos, she's starting with nothing. So you see the face and all of its difficulties. And she tells you about the name of all the makeups that she's putting on. And she puts it all on and puts herself together. And at the end, she looks so much better. Of course, she doesn't look anything near normal at all. But what's the thing you can't get over is the light inside of her, the joy that's in her face. Like, she has beaten this horrible karma. She has taken something that I think would devastate me, devastate my life. She is visibly taking this and just beaming, just beaming. Beautiful, beautiful thing to watch. And so when I read this here, that it's this divine image within that can carry us through something like that can teach us a lesson through somebody who has lost something so powerful and yet has defied it, refused to be beaten by it, and even her attitude toward her ex-husband, just the forgiveness that's in her heart and the light that she's choosing to see all of that in, right? Just staggering. It's amazing what Mother has created in us as people, the potential that's in us as people, as light. We have no idea until you see somebody like the Burned Beauty. You just see her, you're like, see, damn it, that's exactly the way it should be. That's exactly the way it should be. So if you do not make use of this shield of patience on all occasions, right? So this patience is for yourself also. Don't worry about getting out of here. Don't make life about some day in the future that will be better than this one. Make your life about this moment, about seeing this moment as beautiful, as perfect and fine as it is. Look at it from all of its angles, find the beauty in it, figure out how to add beauty to it, to add your love, your wisdom, your bliss to it, right? Moreover, if you do not fix your heart on me, on the divine, with the sincere will to endure all things for my sake, you will be unable to stand up under the heat of battle and will fail to win the palm I reserve for my saints, right? So fix your heart on love, right? That's what he means when he says, if you do not fix your heart on me, right? What is me? What is the me of God? The me of God is pure love, pure wisdom, pure existence. So fix your heart on pure love, a love that can have no doubt, right? A wisdom that can have no error, a being that has no distraction, right? So fix your heart on me with a sincere will to endure all things for my sake, for the sake of love, right? We endure everything for the sake of love, that love may be expressed. I swallow my ego. That wisdom may be expressed. I swallow my pride, Otherwise, you will be unable to stand up under the heat of battle and will fail to win the palm that I reserve for my saints. That little hat that the Greek Olympians used to wear, that little woven palm on your head, reserved for the saints. Therefore, you must bear all courageously, right? We've got to come to that fearlessness. And that fearlessness is a natural state of ours when we stop believing that we are this small being that's subject to the senses, subject to the changing materials. You must bear all courageously, using a strong hand against all that stands in your way, right? A decisive hand. No, get out of my way, not a floppy hand. Not to be confused. Yeah, no need to go there. Not a floppy hand, a decisive hand. I'm done. Not the flirty hand, like I'm done, but I'm done, right? So that there's no mistake. I'm done. I'm not. No, I'm not. It's not considered. It's not up for a second vote. There's such a difference when you speak with focus like that, with you speak with intention like that, you will win the battle. There will be no battle, actually. If you mean what you say, there's no battle. If you don't mean what you say, then there's a long battle, and a battle you're going to lose, because the only reason there's a battle is because you want there to be one. And the mind only wants to fight that battle long enough to feel like it did a valiant job. Now it can fail, and it can feel good about itself at the same time. So it can have that extra piece of cake and feel good about not having waged the war not to have it, right? That's the deceit of the mind. So don't go into battle. There is no need. You have all the strength of God in you, all of it. So just let your no be no, and don't let it come up again. And a mind will be quickly trained if you hold that level of strength in your steering wheel. If you hold your course like that, the mind will learn to obey quickly. But it's like a dog, if you're inconsistent in what you teach your dog's going to be the worst behaved dog on the block. You're always going to be that woman standing out in the yard. Get here, get over here. Fido, get over here. And Fido's running all over the place, right? And then she goes and gets her husband, and he comes out, stands there, puts his hands on his hips. He's like, hey. And that dog is boom, right there at the feet, right? So it's not to bring the gender into it. That's not the point at all. It's the point of having a steady, consistent message to yourself in your mind that when you say no, you mean no. And then the mind won't bother you. It won't make you eat that ninth piece of cake. It won't make you take a second handful of I don't know, candy. So using a strong hand against all that stands in your way, the person who overcomes is fed with the bread from heaven, but to the coward is left much misery. Yes, right? Because we give in because we think we're body mind, and then we feel all of that smallness. Not only are we a body mind, but we're a body that we can't control, and we're a mind that we can't dominate. And so all of those guilts and all of those disappointments and all of those resentments and all of those regrets and all of those stories, boy, do they come in for a good rainstorm, you know, come in and leave us in a terrible state of non-believing, left to much misery. If you seek rest in this life, how can you expect to deserve eternal rest? Right? If you look for rest in this life, if you look for rest in the changing, that's what the world is doing. You know, how do we find rest in the changing? Get really rich, be really beautiful, you know, have an amazing job, become super famous, right? We have these ideas that somehow, if we take these to the nth degree, we'll be beyond the reach of the changing world. We'll find our peace. If we have enough money, we won't have to worry about poverty. But we can see very clearly that there is not such thing as enough money to be free from poverty, right? We can see it in the fact that all those billion trillionaires out there now that are working themselves to death every day, you know, they're no happier than you and I are. Look at their faces, look at their marriages, look at their relationships, right? So we can see that it's not true. And if you spend your life trying to make it true, you'll be completely unprepared. You will not have polished the real you. You won't even know the real you. So how can you expect to take eternal rest when you don't even know the eternal part of yourself? Do not look for rest here, but for much patience. True peace is found only in heaven, not in the human person, nor in any other creature, but in God alone. Right? So it's only found in heaven, not in the human person, right? So we go beyond mind, we go beyond body, we go to the shrine of the heart, you know, where the unchanging is, and we find our peace there. You know, peace. Heaven is not a place. Heaven is Satchit Ananda, obeyed. That's heaven. To be true to our nature is to exist in heaven. And so you can have heaven here on earth, like Thakur says, this world is a mansion of mirth. To those who know who they are and what they are, manifesting that is the highest joy of being. The chance and opportunity to show somebody you love them, beautiful thing, beautiful feeling. You just watch those YouTube videos of those people that go around doing good for people. I watched a young man today. He met I don't remember where he was, at Barbados or somewhere. He met a young black man who was starting a orphanage in his home, and he only had a one-room home, you know, and so he had all these kids with no parents that he was taking in there. And so this tourist guy saw that, got to know him, was so touched by it. He went back and raised some money amongst his friends, and then he brought that money back and gave the guy something like, you know, $5,000 or something. The guy was beside himself in joy. But then he goes away again, and this time he starts up a GoFundMe thing, and he gets $35,000 together, and he brings it to this guy. And I want to show you the video. I wish I could play it right now, because when this guy, this black man, and he's so beautiful, he is so sweet, so guileless. When he's given this check, he falls on the ground, falls on the ground, full on weeping. You know, and he just keeps repeating, "Oh, my boys will be so happy. They'll be so well taken care of. This is wonderful. This is wonderful. I can take in more." And he's just rolling in rapture of all the possibility of what he can do. And you understand love. You understand how love can take a horrible world and give you beauty in it, give you something worthwhile in it. And that is what we are. That is what we are intended to be. We're intended to be that light that introduces that love into the most difficult of circumstances, into the most difficult of situations. It's our part to allow light to come in, right? To be unbeaten, to be unbroken by the challenges, but to be patient, to be steady, to be kind. You must be willing to suffer all things gladly for the love of God. Labors and sorrows, temptations, afflictions, all anxieties, all needs, infirmities, injuries, detraction, rebukes, all humiliations, confusions, corrections, and contempt. Such things are aids to virtue and test those who are in the service of Christ, preparing them for a heavenly crown. For this short labor I will give an eternal reward, and for passing confusion, infinite glory. Right? So he's saying that all of these anxieties, infirmities, injuries, detractions, these are all consequences of our eating the fruit of egoism in the garden, in the Garden of Eden, within our soul, right? We chose to go out through the senses and to climb the tree of egoism and to eat its fruit. And so we suffer. And all that suffering is beneficial to us because it will prevent us from staying there. It will prevent us from going deeper and deeper into egoism, into materialism. At one point, it's this pain and suffering that wakes us up, right? We wake up in the gutter one day and we're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Right? That's the prodigal child story, right? Who wakes up in the in the pigsty, where he fell over the fence as a drunk and into the pig slop, passed out, and wakes up in the morning, covered in pig poop, rolling around there as the pigs are grunting next to him. And he has his moment. Oh my God, what has become of me? I was a prince. I was the son of a nobleman. And now look what I've done. Look what I've become. Right? And so we have that moment in our life when we sit there and we're confronted. Wow, what have I become? What have I done? Right? And all that suffering and all that pain comes to a point, and what happens? We find love. We turn within, and God comes in with an act of grace, an act of mercy. Right? Do you believe that spiritual consolations will be yours for the asking? Right? Do you believe that? It was not so with my saints. They had many afflictions and various temptations and great desolation as well. But they bore up patiently through it all, trusting God and not themselves. For they considered the sufferings we presently endure are minuscule in comparison with the glory to be revealed in us. Right? And of course, in the Christians, they always put that after the after the finish line of death. But there's no need for that. All of these glories and wonders are ours now, if we can manage to transcend our egoism, to break that connection with body mind, to reconnect that ideal of spirit within, knowing that our nature is that Satchitananda. Do you expect to have here and now what others just managed to obtain after many tears and great labors? Place your hope in the Lord. Be strong and courageous in your heart, and place your hope in the Lord. Do not despair. Do not give up, but with perseverance offer both body and soul for the glory of God. Your reward will be abundant, and I will be with you in all of your tribulation. Right? This a beautiful promise there that really works out to the fact that through grace we become aware of the presence, and through the presence we become aware of love, and through love we become willing to lay down our personal stories, our personal narratives, and in that silence we find our wisdom, and in that silence we pick up all of the gems that lay outside the temple door of the heart, and we come to know our immortality, we come to know our peace, we come to know our infinity. we come to know our nature. And in that, we become the light that lights the world. We become the light that manifests the true love of God, the true presence, and the true meaning to all of this.